my channel, and in this video I'm going to show you how to solve number 200 on Leetcode, which is the number of islands problem. This is a very popular problem across many companies and many interviews, so knowing how to solve this will really be useful for both this problem and even other problems that are variations of this. So let's get into it. So the problem is that we're given this input of zeros and ones, where 1 represents a land and 0 represents water, and we're supposed to count the number of islands. So in this case, islands is if the ones are vertically or horizontally connected, that counts as an island. So in this case, you can see that these ones are all vertically and horizontally connected, so this is one island. This is also vertically connected to this, so they're all just forming one island. These four are connected, this one is alone, and these two are connected, so that's 3 islands. Remember, diagonals are not counted as islands. So let's get into solving it. So the approach that we're going to use here is a typical depth first search. You can think of it as us just walking through all the islands and then checking which islands we've already been through. So let's get into it. So first we'll create a visited array, which we will set to the same size as the island array. So I'm just gonna assume that there's at least one. So let me just do an initial check here. So if grid.length is 0, just return 0. So because here we have done grid.0, so to make this safe we need this check. Okay, now we know that we have at least one row, so then we can do this. And then what we're going to do is, you can think of it as, we'll go to each square, we'll see if we've already walked it. If we haven't walked it, we'll go ahead and walk the whole island and then come back, right? So let's have a counter of how many islands we'll have, and then I think I misspelled length here. So we'll loop through everything. So this for loop is just looping through the whole input. So we have a loop to go through all the squares in the island. And what we're gonna do here is that if we've already visited this island, right? So here we'll say 1 is equal to visited, because initially when we initialize this, everything will be 0. So if we've already visited the island, we just continue. Else we go ahead and walk the whole island, so we know that we mark everything as visited. So we pass in grid, we pass in I, we pass in j, and we pass in the visited array. So before we do that, first if we're on water, so if grid at I and j is equal to 0, so if this is water, then we just continue, because we're only counting islands. So first we check if it's water. If it's water, we continue. Then if it's an island but we've already visited it, we continue. And then we don't need this else here, because the continue will just break. And then we walk the island and we increment num islands. And at the end we just return num islands. So now let's implement the part to walk the island, and what this has to do is essentially mark all the connected ones as visited. So we have a private, it's just going to be a void because it's just going to modify the visited array. Oh, by the way, this has to be a character because this is a character array. So we have our grid, there's int I, int j, and then the visited array. So here we start by marking I and j as visited, so we say it's 1, and then we walk through all its neighbors, right? So we walk I minus 1, so the left neighbor is going to be I minus 1j, the right one is going to be, or sorry, maybe this is up because this is the row, so I minus 1j is on top, I plus 1j is the bottom. Obviously we need to pass in the grid, visited, and then I j plus 1 will be the right and I j minus 1 is the left. So we walk all of them, but we only want to walk it if it's equal to 1 and if it's still within the grid. So we can put that check here saying if the grid at I or j is equal to 0, which means if it's water, we return because we aren't supposed to walk it. But even before that, since we're minusing and plussing here, we could exceed the boundary. So first let's check if it's within the boundary. So if I must be less than grid.length, and if it's not, which means it's greater than equal to grid.length, or if j is greater than equal to grid at 0.length, so which means it exceeds the boundary, then we just return. And then if it's water, we return. We mark the square as visited, the current square as visited, and then we walk all its neighbors, the left, right, top, and bottom. So this should mark, it should recurse and mark everything as visited in the left, right, top, and bottom, and then returns here. The next time if we encounter a square in the same island, it should already be visited, so it will just skip. And when it encounters a new island, it will walk the island and increment the num islands. So let's see how this does. It's supposed to be like that, I think, but also I'm missing a semicolon. Okay, we did get index out of bound exception here. I realized that we also need to check the that it's less than 0 since we're subtracting stuff here. So we need to check that if I is less than 0, or I is greater than the grid length, or j is less than 0 or greater than 2, or j is greater than the grid at 0.length. This means that it's out of bounds. So basically we check all 4 sides. So let's try that again. Okay, now we're getting a stack overflow exception. Okay, so one thing here is that if we've already visited it, we shouldn't try to recurse because it's just going to go back and forth. So let's check for that. So if we've already visited this square, then we return also. Otherwise we visit it and recurse for all its neighbors. So let's try that. Okay, that seemed to work. Let's submit. I'm getting an index out of bound over here. Oh, this should be grid at 0.length or grid at I.length because it's the inner loop. Cool. That got accepted. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.